Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the SME Assembly 2020 and welcome to this session where we are going to discuss about disruptive innovation, disruptive technologies and the role of small and medium enterprises in pushing through innovation. I'm Dana Eleftheriadou. I'm leading the Advanced Technology team in the European Commission's Department for the Internal Market, Industry, Small and Medium Enterprises and Entrepreneurship, DG GROW. And it's my honor to be the moderator of this session today with distinguished speakers. But before that, let me say a few words about the policy context that we are living, all of us right now, and then the objective of this session today. Ladies and gentlemen, as you know, we live challenging times in many different ways, and European small and medium enterprises are crucial actors in this scene. First of all, the COVID-19 crisis that is unlike any other crisis in our times. On one hand, this is a terrible health and economic and societal challenge. On the other hand, COVID-19 has accelerated the digital transformation. I mean, we have seen schools and entertainment and teleworking and telemedicine working practically in 2 weeks' time, and they made such programs that we couldn't have seen in the last 3 or 4 years. So the crisis accelerated this transition. It also triggered a new reflection among the citizens on how they would like their future to be, how would like the future of our children to be. So very quickly the question came on, yes, we need a recovery, yes, we need to reimagine our future, but then no matter what recovery, we need a green and digital recovery, and we need to put the emphasis on societal and social resilience. So those are very clear messages from the COVID crisis that we need to keep in mind as we're preparing the future. Second big challenge, Professor Stiglitz mentioned a lot, that is the climate change, is mitigating the climate change and pursuing the new European climate ambitions is a huge challenge. And the time for the necessary societal transformation is short. We need to react very quickly. So while we are addressing these huge challenges, we should not neglect that there is also, like behind every big crisis, there is also a huge economic opportunity ahead. To the opinion of many experts, Europe will emerge stronger from this crisis through investing in the disruptive technologies that will deliver this green and digital transition, empowered by technologies such as artificial intelligence, quantum computing, data analytics, and so on and so forth. So science and technology are our best allies to succeed this transition towards a better, greener, socially responsible future. Our strong industrial leadership, our innovative small and medium enterprise, and bright European researchers can make this happen. Now, this is exactly the objective of this session. This session will look at progress made in the European Union in the development of disruptive technologies, but also in their adoption throughout the small and medium enterprises community. We look at how the open and disruptive innovation schemes and models are working in Europe and how small and medium enterprises are thriving in developing such innovations in Europe. This session will discuss various options of the right policy mix. What is the right policy mix for us to pursue in order to strengthen the European position in advanced and disruptive technologies? The right policy mix can be a mix indeed of legislative framework, investments and access to finance, new skills and access to new markets. The question now is how European and national governments can better support the implementation of such technologies. Then in the sessions, we will also listen to some distinguished speakers and to examples from leading small and medium enterprises that are developing very innovative solutions. And finally, we will discuss the efficiency of different sources of funding and finance and propose potential solutions for the current shortcomings. So this is going to be a very lively discussion. Stay tuned. And I will start with our first speaker, Our first speaker is Mr. Rafael Laguna de la Vera. He is a tech pioneer, founder and innovator, and he is the founding director of the Federal Agency for Disruptive Innovation, the Federal German Agency for Disruptive Innovation, SPRINT. With more than 30 years of experience, Rafael has a proven track record of success in building and growing software companies. The agency that you are running aims to foster innovations with radically new technologies and a great potential to change the market with new products, services, and value chains. So the question, Rafael, is, Europe has bright minds, researchers and entrepreneurs alike. We have a great deal of innovative small and medium enterprises that thrive in made in Europe solutions, high-tech solutions. The question is how we can open new markets for these disruptive innovators so that there are people that adopt the technology that they are deploying. And how do SMEs best access these innovations? The floor is yours, Rafael.
Thank you, Dana. Thank you very much. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in and listening. Let me go back a little bit and do a little analysis of what happened in the past 75 years in Europe, where we've built a very strong economy, especially based on the small and medium enterprises that we're discussing here, and also a very strong scientific community. At the same time, all the huge disruptive innovations, and I will define in a second what that could be, really may have been made here in Europe, but most of them were exploited elsewhere. So when you look at all things internet, for example, or smartphone, things that really change the world in a big way. And that's what I would define a disruptive innovation to be, something where the world is a different place than it was before, where new economies are created, people can do new things that they've never dreamt of before. Most of them were made outside, were let's say, exploited outside of Europe, whilst we made a lot of them. The question is, why is that? And what do we need to change for us to be able to be those disruptors once again, like we've done in the past before that? That's the reason why the Agency for Disruptive Innovation came into being. I was tasked by the German government to build an agency that enables small businesses and science to work together, to fund them with enough money and leadway and headroom, to help them actively to bring out disruptive innovation like we could never before. Now, the question would be, if we haven't done it before, how do you think we can do it now? Where's the opportunity? Well, there's lots of opportunity abound. When you look at what has happened in the world, let's say in the digital realm, we're discussing a lot digital sovereignty, and like Dana alluded to, coronavirus sort of brought digitization forward in a very fast way. But at the same time, look at what we're doing here. We're mostly looking into tools that don't come from Europe. We have no control over what happens with the data. We're using smartphones, we're using messaging applications, video conferencing, and none of that is from here. Now, all the data that is being created, just in that round, but also in all other areas, is, of course, the new money that will thrive, that will make economies thrive. Now, if we don't become part of the digitization of all industries, I guess we will be in trouble. But to phrase it positively, if we become part of that, a lot of disruption, a lot of business opportunity waits for us. I think the best way for Europe to deal with this is to just go back and focus on, the principles that make Europe a whole, one thing. We're based on one culture that respects the human individual's needs, that gives human individuals control over their destiny, over their lives, that enables them to live the lives the way they want, and that doesn't steal anything from them that they don't know. This value system is actually highly valued all over the world. It's not like people in China or in the US think that we Europeans are crazy having that, having healthcare for everyone, having the ability to decide, to make your own decisions about your own life. But if you look at the digital products that are coming from outside of our culture, you will see that a lot of these cultural values are not embedded in these products. But instead, it's almost like we're data batteries for some tools that we can use for free, but we pay, of course, with our data, enabling the data economy for the other people, without them asking us. So building products with these values embedded, I think, will be a huge opportunity for Europe. And everybody believes us. I mean, we at the Enlightenment phase, we invented things like science to develop a process, how we get to the truth. How do we find true, right, wrong? How do we define that? How can we make a process that everybody can do all over again to come to the same conclusions? That's what we've invented 350, 400 years ago. We should go about the way we digitize our businesses the same way, in a very open, transparent, trustable manner, and build this into all our products. Of course, we don't stop with pure digital products. Anything. If you talk Internet of Things, if you talk, artificial intelligence, we're talking a lot about the ethics of artificial intelligence. Now, if we don't trust the machines, right, especially artificially intelligent machines, I think we're in dire straits. Now, building intelligent machines that are trustworthy, that are based on these European values, is a huge opportunity, another huge opportunity for Europe to go forward. But also we see the excellence that we've had, again, coronavirus. We see, new principles of vaccine manufacturing coming out of Europe. And actually, the first one which will move forward with a vaccine is a company, for a very small SME from Germany. Now, it's still a miracle that this happened, to be honest, because one big issue that we need to fix is the financing of such big disruptive innovations. Now, if you look at the company that I mentioned and the other ones in the field, they all need not much short of €500 million to do their thing, to develop the product. It's very hard in Europe to get that kind of money for such, sort of long-running, deep innovations. And especially when you're a small, medium enterprise, you may not even have the means to even go around and find the money, because it's a very cumbersome, lengthy process, and the experts that you need to hire are very expensive. And then when you compare the amount of money that's available, venture capital money, private equity money, in the European markets, it's at a fifth adjusted to per capita compared to the US. Now, here's, of course, a big change that needs to happen. But the good news is people hear you. This is why I'm around. The Agency for Disruptive Innovation gets €100 million per year for the next 10 years to foster disruptive innovation in collaboration with the scientific community and small and medium enterprises. So things are happening. On the European level, there's the European Innovation Council, which you can access, which has even bigger funds available to all EU countries out there. We're seeing new funds coming into existence for deep tech investments, both governmental but also private funds. So I do see a lot of change happening, and I want to make you aware that these things exist. Now, Sprint Agency is in Germany, so if you want to do your thing in Germany, you can come from anywhere, no problem at all. Then contact us, but also contact the EIC and look around what's happening in the financing realm, both on the governmental side as well on the private sector, if you have great ideas that need some big financing for them to come into existence. Because one thing is true, all disruptive innovations in the recent past, in the past 75 years, required a lot of money. Let's say, take SpaceX, because they just launched 4 astronauts into space yesterday, or today, actually, European time. What a great feat, but it took 15, 20 years to do it. It took hundreds of millions of dollars to build it. And before they were even making any revenues, it took 10 years and hundreds of millions. But now that they've done it, we're all admiring what has been accomplished. We can build the next SpaceX here. We can build the next Tesla here, because most of the engineers working there probably come from Europe anyway. So we need to make sure that you can stay here and do it here. Because it's not a lack of expertise, it's not a lack of capabilities at all, but it's a lack of support for such super high risky projects. But like I said, I think Corona also helped us to realize that we need to be innovative moving forward, to also sort of live on at the wealth levels that we're at now, or even increase the wealth levels that we're having. Another asset that I believe we have, I mentioned the values we have in Europe. Another asset that we have is that I think we all believe that we should be careful with the resources that we have on this one world, on this planet A. We have no planet B, right? Dana mentioned that before. I think us pushing forward the agenda to keep our Earth whole, to repair the damage that we've done to it, so that we can live on this planet with as many people as possible for the time that this Earth continues to exist, is a great plan. And even if we're building a plan for a planet B, like Mars or so, it won't be as nice as here. You can be sure of that for the next millions of years. So we need to make sure that this Earth stays the way it is. I think we are all inclined to do that. I think we all have it in us that we want to create products that don't destroy our Earth. So now, to summarize, if we combine these two things, build products based on the values of Europe that we've built, in the Enlightenment phase, where we've invented science, to build products that deal well with nature and Mother Earth, that think cradle to cradle in their product delivery, are two values we can bake into the products. The strong SME economy that we have, the strong science community that we have, need to collaborate more. We need more financing, and it becomes available as we speak, to come together to build great disruptive products that will then make sure that our wealth will continue on for the next 100 years and beyond. So thank you very much for listening, and I hand over back to Dana.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Rafael. Inspiring notes to take. Stay here. Do it from here. We have all that we need. We need more finance, but this is coming. As most of you know, the multi-annual framework program, which is the budget of the European Commission for the next 7 years, plus the recovery and resilience facility, has been approved by the European Parliament last week. So those are great news. Unprecedented amounts of money will be poured into the market, and also an increase in research and innovation. A follow-up question for you, Rafael. A lot of people, there are innovative small and medium enterprises, right? But they stay small. They do not scale up. That's what I've heard is a big problem in Europe, right? And where are the European unicorns? What is from your experience at Sprint, do we need necessarily European unicorns? And if so, how do we get them?
I think we absolutely need them. And I think the mistake that we've made in the past decades is that we did not provide them the financing headspace to become unicorns. Think of a business like a rocket. Most rockets fail on the launch pad. It's really hard to get a rocket even off the launch pad. Now, a few rockets make it up, and then they need to fire the second stage. That's those companies that come to a certain size and level of success where they need to fire up the second stage, but there is no funding available for the second stage. So the second stage is provided by somebody from the US or China, and this company just takes a turn to the left or to the right, to the east or to the west, and disappears from Europe. And this is what happened to many potential unicorns here in Europe, as they could not get the money to grow from a sort of, let's say, 100, 200, 300 people business to a 3,000 business and become a real unicorn. These companies get bought at this stage, acquired by foreign companies, and then they disappear from the scene. I think it's very important to build new unicorns, because these new unicorns become the new giants in the market. If you look at the US stock exchange, of the 20 top companies, 12 didn't exist 20 years ago. If you look in Germany or France, this is not the case. Maybe one didn't exist, or two, and it's Delivery Hero or something like that. So not exactly a deep tech company. So I hope in 10 years from now, we have a couple of companies in the CAC 40 and the DAX 30, that are unicorns that were created as we speak today. And we need this for a sustainable economy in Europe.
Looking forward to this, Rafael. Thank you very much for the inspiring thoughts. I see Eva is with us now. So I would like very much to introduce you our next speaker, Mrs. Eva Kaili, is a member of the European Parliament and the chair of the Future of Science and Technology panel in the European Parliament. This is the famous STOA program, and the chair of the Center for Artificial Intelligence. In her capacity, Eva has been working intensively on promoting innovation and legislation in the fields of high-tech like blockchain technology, online platforms, big data, fintech, artificial intelligence, and cybersecurity. She has served also as a draft person while drafting the Juncker Plan, EFSI, the European Fund for Strategic Investment, #2, and now its successor, the Invest EU program. Eva is the founder of the Future Forum, a network of influential politicians, officials, and public figures promoting innovation. So here is the question for you, Eva. The European Parliament is actively voicing its support to advanced technologies, yet only if those are fair, trustworthy, and put people at center stage. Very much referring to what Rafael just told us. How can Europe achieve a step change in the race of innovation and adoption of innovation in certain high-tech fields? And then what can the EU policy framework, or how can the EU policy framework boost this process? The floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Dana, for inviting me. Ms. Eleftheriadou, it's a great honor actually to be able to address you, and it's a very interesting topic. And I heard Rafael, he made very interesting points also. So I will try to give you maybe the perspective of the European Parliament and the legislative work that's been ongoing too, because we have been trying the recent years to address the problem of supporting SMEs in this in staying and taking advantage of the digital single market, as the friction we have and we had, the regulatory one especially, it's mostly affecting the SMEs. And in the startups, they are more easy to begin in Europe, but at the point where they become SMEs or when they need to scale up, we had a lot of problems to face. So I've been working on those files. And as you said, for investment tools that Europe should adopt and try to see also that we will manage to keep those companies in Europe, but also to help them transition into the digital era, because this has not been the case. They are more based on a traditional structure. So as this mandate started, we had two very interesting files coming in ITRE, in the industry committee. It was the European Industrial Strategy and the SMEs strategy. So in both files, what you will see is basically the realization of the new understanding, the new perspective of the European Commission. And this would include, of course, the prism of digitalization and green innovation, and which I would explain as sustainability. And we noticed that during this pandemic, the more resilient companies were the ones that had changed their business models into using more innovative technologies. So, and of course, in parallel to that, we are developing the strategy of how Europe can support its own capabilities. So I would say that the main points that you would find in this file, especially the SME strategy, would be indeed the green transition, digitalization of business and operational models, and innovation, simplification of procedures for them, of course, female entrepreneurship and social enterprises, and supporting them acquiring skills, like mentoring them. I believe that the European Commission's very timely support of creating digital innovation hubs across Europe and the member states has been targeting the heart of the problem, because we are creating ecosystems where we can help and mentor companies to make and use these innovative tools and make this transition in order not just to survive, but also to scale up here. At the same time, while we are trying to conclude the realization of a digital single market, a real single market, actually. So in the same time, because of the pandemic and under the prism of the pandemic, we have already the Commission's setting up a European skills agenda, which I would say it goes very close to the efforts to support SMEs in Europe. As I said, they are more based in traditional models. And we also have the Enterprise Europe Network and the European Digital Innovation Hubs that can collaborate, can let's say, match the puzzle and have the best possible results. So on our behalf, the policy framework and, as I said, the frictions we had would actually help them change the moment we also give them clear legal certainty and clear rules for them to use, so that it's more easy to grow inside the European Union instead of addressing bigger markets like China or US, where you don't have to deal with different legal systems, different languages, different tax regimes. So to do that, the Commission has already sent us several files. It's the digital finance, which is very important for cross-border payments in order to be able to function under circumstances like the pandemic forced us to. And we have the approach for low risk and high risk applications for artificial intelligence, which means startups and SMEs of low risk applications, they will have faster access, less rules, and less burden to take over in order to become innovative and to use this the data sets, good quality of data sets that Europe can provide them. I think this is really important because wherever I go, the access to data is like one of the main problems, not just for companies, but also for scientists. So we have to do that, and not just the data that the bigger ones have, forcing them to share them, but also governmental data, public data that we can share, and we can find new solutions. As we saw already with the pandemic, a lot of startups and SMEs, they came up with very innovative solutions very fast. And we tried to help them by investing with hackathons, or like investing a lot into this vibrant ecosystem. So at the same time, we are investing, of course, in infrastructures of the 5G infrastructures and connectivity, but also in the hardware. And I think this is also essential if we want to have economic resilience and industrial resilience inside the European Union, because you mentioned a lot the perspective, the geopolitics of it, the geopolitics of what we're doing in Europe. And I think this is something that we've been struggling with. So how open can we be? How close should we be? How can we protect Europe, but without becoming protectionists? And this is like a very difficult balance to keep, but we have to strike this balance without compromising one for the other. So I think that it's very critical to understand and work on the files of artificial intelligence and data strategy. Basically, I think that during this pandemic, we will manage to move much faster and find what unites us, because we could really take a lot of time into finding what divides us and argue about the main contradictions that arise with artificial intelligence. But I think in this case, we will move much faster. And we already have EIT, EIC, InvestEU, and you mentioned that MFF has managed to come to an agreement. So we have the investments, we are working on the regulation, we have the digital innovation hubs, and we need to remove all the friction. So in terms of our global position, I would say we need to set these standards so we can call for reciprocity in our global collaboration without closing, but setting the right principles in order to collaborate. Similar to GDPR, but I would say more strong, and to try to have ethics and trust embedded by design to avoid coming like after a leak of data, or after the understanding that we opened up to huge platforms and we managed basically to completely destroy this vibrant system of the startups in Europe, because already Alipay has took a license in Luxembourg to get in the European market. So we need more time, and we need stronger infrastructure to support also the European SMEs. So I would say we need also diversification of technological exposure and a distinct market structure to make sure that we have solid principles, we have technical and ethical standards for sustainable value chains and consumer protection and product safety. So I think regulation can play a very good and significant role to create European marketplaces and be competitive with Chinese and US. And because of the frictions we have, we don't have the unicorns that we would like to have. Still, we are very competitive in terms of quality and in terms of potential. So I think thanks to you, your work, Dana, we can actually be very optimistic, and we will try to move fast in the European Parliament to work with the Commission and finally be prepared and be more resilient than we were before this pandemic. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Eva. And I would like to say it's thanks to the work of all of us, the policymakers, the regulators, the vibrant small and medium enterprises community. I've learned through my experience a lot that one solution cannot be successful if not all the parties collaborate and, let's say, achieve work towards the same objectives. Thank you very much. Inspiring talks, very common references. I already see some patterns between our two first speakers. Thank you very much. And with this, I will advance with our third speaker, Mrs. Anna Makes. She's the Chief Executive, Chief Executive Officer of Euroelectrics and member of the EIC, the European Innovation Council for Pilot Advisory. The company that Anna is running, Neuroelectrics, is aiming to change the way we interact with the brain, developing innovative technologies to non-invasively monitor and stimulate the brain as a treatment for depression, as a treatment for patients with depression, chronic pain, and stroke rehabilitation in Europe. Sorry, I have to interrupt, but I hear an echo. I don't know if somebody has forgotten his micro, unmuted. Okay, must be better now. So Anna is also, apart from CEO of Neuroelectrics, is also the member of the European Innovation Council Pilot Advisory. This is an advisory board that advises the Commission, very high level, that advises the Commission on the EIC pilot and also on designing a fully fledged European Innovation Council for the next European Research and Innovation Framework Programme. So here's the question for you, Anna. How will Horizon Europe and the European Innovation Council promote disruptive innovations now and in the future? And how can the projects progress to the next level, that is, to be transformed from research projects into entrepreneurial opportunities? The floor is yours, Anna.
Thank you, Dana, and it's a great pleasure to be here. I wanted to, first echo what Eva and Rafael have been saying. As you mentioned, I am a member of the European Innovation Council Advisory Board. It's a group of 22 advisors that have been having the commitment to really help the Commission about the European Innovation Council objectives. And I'm super happy to say that this has been a tremendous success. And as Rafael was mentioning, we are pretty good in research, in generating top-level research and papers, but we haven't been that good in scaling up companies, right? Only 8% of the world's unicorns are coming from Europe, which doesn't represent our scientific and deep tech production, right? So I think that the Commission was set to change this. And also in terms of late-stage capital, there are 14 times more late-stage capital in the States than in Europe. In terms of business R&D, in Europe, we only have 1.3 versus 2 in the USA, and for example, 3.5 in Korea, right? So I think that in some things we are really good. In others, we have to scale up and get up to speed in the world. We invested 2 billion in this 2019-2020 in the European Innovation Council. And as an entrepreneur, I want to say that the EIC wants to become the beacon or the lighthouse for entrepreneurs. I wish when I started my company, I could have gone to a single window, right, in the Commission to really scale up my company. And, I've been really, really fortunate to have not only the framework program, Horizon, or even the ERC, where we just got a synergy grant. So we wouldn't be here with the tremendous support of the European Commission in terms of research. But I think that for a company like us, it's not only deep tech or research you need, you also need the business side. And I think that's what the EIC is doing. So just for the entrepreneurs in the audience, you can now go to the EIC and ask for what we call blended finance, which means that the Commission, for the first time, I think, in history, can directly invest into companies. And why we are doing that? Because, for example, I'm a woman CEO. We know only 2% of the capital goes to women-led organizations. So we need institutions like the Commission to fill the gap of funding, not only in women, but in diversity, Eastern countries. There is a lot of people that has difficulties to access capital. And I think that's where the Commission can help a lot. So to your first question on how do we go from research to the market or to scale up, the EIC also has the Pathfinder. The Pathfinder is what we used to call FED, right? All these research programs from the Commission that are really, we take the Pathfinder to this instrument of, providing finance with the spirit of really helping the transition from research to business. So I'm very happy. It's a pity that I think we are finishing in February, but the advisory board has been working very, very hard. And I think we set up the ground for the EIC. And I really, really hope it really encourages European entrepreneurs to scale up and become big. And as an example, me, myself, in my company, I'm a very proud European entrepreneur because I was born here in Barcelona, my company, but I moved to Boston 6 years ago. And it's an example how this technology that I will wear now, because everybody likes to see. So this cap that I'm wearing, that can do both EEG, it can monitor your brain, but it can also inject currents into the brain, right? So these currents that we're injecting into the brain non-invasively and can be done at home can help patients with epilepsy to reduce their seizures, can help patients with depression. We are doing research on Alzheimer's and other brain disorders. So I think that at the end, this technology that was born in Europe has the potential to impact millions of patients. There are 70 million patients with epilepsy in the world, and 1/3 don't respond to medication. Why should I limit my company to serve only European patients? As an entrepreneur, I moved to the US. I engaged with the FDA because I knew the only way to make this accessible to patients was to really go through the regulatory path, not only in Europe, but in the US and in Asia. Today, we are in a pivotal trial on epilepsy, FDA, another one on depression, and we aim to become the first FDA-clear new therapy using this technology in the world. To me, this is an example of how to scale up company. You're European-born, but you have to go out. You have to conquer other markets. You have to deal with the regulatory agencies, both in the US and in Asia. Don't forget Asia. And you just have to really have a global impact because patients need us, whether we are Europeans, Americans, or Chinese, they need our solutions. If your grandma has Alzheimer's, you want the best solution for her tomorrow, right? So I think that with that, I will finish my intervention and I will leave it for the audience to ask questions. But I think it's really important to, in the European Innovation Council, we say, solving relevant problems in a responsible way. And I think this is the opportunity for Europe. We have the deep tech, we have the scientific knowledge, and we have the ethics and the responsibility to transform them into things that will have a positive impact. So I think that we have the potential to really, really scale up companies and become the leader we should be. We've been behind, as Rafael was saying, for a long time, but I think we have a tremendous opportunity. So, it's just some words of encouragement for the Europeans, because remember, no matter what you hear from the US, and I live there, talent is everywhere. So it doesn't matter if you're in Estonia, if you're in Germany, if you're in Spain, entrepreneurs are everywhere. We just have to help them out. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. Very vivid presentation, and thank you for the encouraging talk also. So not only stay here and do it here as Raphael suggested, but also go out and conquer the world. Very, very strong messages for the entrepreneurs that are with us today. We have taken a wonderful and very thoughtful input from our three speakers. I would like to now interact a little bit more with the audience. We have received a series of questions, but before we go to the questions, perhaps we should start with the poll. So please start the poll Q3. And I spell out the question at the time we are waiting for the poll to appear on your screens. What are the most important priorities to boost disruptive technology deployment among small and medium enterprises? So the question again, what are the most important priorities to boost disruptive technology deployment among small and medium enterprises? And we have 5 potential questions. I have been told that it takes some time that you see the poll on your screens. I don't know if it appeared yet because I cannot see the screen. Not yet? Okay. So I would allow for a few seconds for our audience to choose one or more actually of the options. The options rank between adaptation of existing regulatory frameworks to the requirements of the high-tech age. We have heard from Eva an extensive proposals about how regulatory framework can help create new markets. Second option, easily accessible external financing for small and medium enterprises. Third option, facilitate secure and easy data sharing. Fourth option, support skill building, skills development of small and medium enterprises management and workforce. So whether the SME management is aware of the potential of disruptive technologies. And fifth option, facilitate close collaboration between stakeholders, meaning those SMEs that develop the innovative solutions like ANAS, for example, and all the other small and medium enterprises that may need to uptake, to adopt this solution in order to do better and smarter their businesses. I have been informed that this may take a few minutes until the poll is completed and then we have the results. So in the meantime, we have received some questions from the audience, and I would pass these questions to our speakers. So we have a question from Dimitrios Bimpas. The question is, what initiatives have been taken for business transfer and e-skills development during pandemic in EU countries? It is not clear to whom this question is addressed, but I prefer to take both questions and then perhaps pass the floor to all of you, and we can listen to all of you on what you believe parts of the answers can be. The second question is from Mr. Panikos Poutsiouris. The question is, what innovative financing schemes can we promote to safeguard the survival of smaller firms during the pandemic? Those are the first bunch of questions, let's say. Any one of our speakers that wishes to start first?
Thank you, and thank you for the audience for the questions, because I understand that whoever works or is close to an SME understands the challenges, and the priority I saw here is like the skills and the funding. So Europe didn't have the a European digital skills strategy because we don't have the exclusivity. It's the member states that decide the educational models. But what we did suddenly is to give them option, to give them some directions, and to use all the existing tools and agencies in order to make sure that citizens will have options. It's similar to the MOOCs, so you have access to online courses, and you can use platforms. And Europe has already tried to provide free Wi-Fi in all regions of Europe that they were not able to have that. we are investing a lot into connectivity, so investments in telecommunications in order to reach also rural areas where internet is not at high speeds. Because actually, if you see where the main hubs of innovation take place, it's usually where the connectivity is also very good. So you would see, I will give the example also, it's not EU anymore, but like in UK, you would see London growing so much. And instead of like growing and expanding to different cities, you have London expanding as a city, and the burden of the transportation is increasing heavily. But this happens because the infrastructure is not giving them enough frequencies and speed so that they can be connected in different other cities. So these are problems that we are trying to solve in Europe, instead of having like these giga cities, like mega cities, to be able to have more options so that everybody can work online. So what happened with the pandemic was actually we changed the mentality, because the tools were existing. We're using WebEx. It existed. It was not created during the pandemic. There is Zoom. It was even free to connect. You had Skype. I mean, you could use these platforms. But now we realize that we can actually connect and work from home, so we can also be educated at home. We have, of course, the same obstacles that we have in Europe, different languages and difficulty of interpretation, and the physical contact, of course, cannot be replaced by us discussing here online. But at the same time, we had immediately everyone becoming more relevant with the new technologies, understanding these platforms exist, and starting to use them. So I would say it was a change of mentality, basically. And secondly, about the tools, the financial tools, the financing tools. So as I mentioned before, we have EIC. Anna spoke about that. They have very good understanding on what they have to do in order to help the scale-up phase and keep companies in Europe. But we also worked a lot and finished the crowdfunding platform. So we have a European ability to send liquidity, to use liquidity from all the member states without the barriers of member states. And we are setting up now also the digital finance final file to be able to use tokens and secondary markets in order to be able to get funding, to use your e-wallets, to make cross-border payments in a very easy way, faster, but with trust, using the existing technologies again. So what happened was we had the catalyst to start using in a smarter way what we already had in our hands. So I would say this is what changing investment skills and basically everything.
Thank you very much, Eva. Rafael, would you like to report on the situation in Germany, perhaps, the country that you know best?
Yeah, thank you. Sure. I think the German government was very quick at launching various initiatives to keep small businesses afloat during the pandemic. Actually, it was a series of programs, because nobody knew how long this pandemic was going to last. And I guess we still don't know. So we can consider this rolling forward. Of course, small businesses, especially in some areas, are hitting very, very hard times. But I believe that the relatively quick reaction of the government was also quite unique. For example, for artists and the likes, the government pays out a certain percentage of the past revenues of their businesses. Still, it's they're all in dire straits, as we know, but still it helps keep them afloat. Of course, I think the flexibility of business people per se is the best help that SMEs can do to themselves. I think we've seen a couple of very impressive examples how people flip their business models to an online model from what they've had before. And in a way, I think it's a good practice, because adding that capability to your business, even in post-pandemic times, will be very good. Nobody can say whether the funds provided will be sufficient to keep most of the businesses afloat. I think we're all sort of watching what's going to happen moving forward. But like I said, I believe that so far, at least the German government, but I see that in other countries and on the EU level as well, we've seen very, very fast action to help people stay in business.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Rafael. Anna, would you have a contribution either from Spain or from any other place that you feel contributing to this discussion?
I think that the EIC, we launched some programs that were specifically targeted to looking for COVID solutions by the European ecosystem. So that's what we launched from the EIC. I would say that in despite of the very hard times, I can also say that I've seen so many opportunities, especially in those startups and SMEs that are thinking about health and telemedicine. I have seen how so many companies have transitioned to telemedicine. My solution was always designed to go home, but to us and to a lot of startups in Europe, this has been a tremendous acceleration of our business plan because now telemedicine, it really makes a lot of sense. And I think it's here to stay, right? Like telework. So if you think of, in the fintech, telework, remote monitoring, telehealth, I also think that I know it's hard, but there are opportunities to change the way we work. And I've seen the startup communities reacting pretty fast to change their business models to the tele-remote. And the digital tools allow you to do that in tremendous ways. So I would really encourage the SMEs that can to go for the Commission to search for funding, but also to change their models into this remote way of working, right?
Thank you. And if I can take the privilege of moderating this session and also giving part of the answer on the knowledge I have with another piece of work I'm doing with intelligent cities. Eva referred to cities indeed, and we're running this program that's called Intelligent Cities Challenge, where we are working on purpose with smaller cities, the cities that most European people live, actually. During the pandemic, we held a number of webinars with them to see how they were cities, of course, in the front line of fighting the crisis and also preparing their economy and the schools and the telemedicine applications. So we had a number of webinars with them to see what are the challenges they are facing and what solutions they develop so that other cities can learn from them. And it was amazing indeed how quickly cities at the local level mobilized the resources, the high-tech solutions they had available, and even reskilling their personnel. From the top of my mind, I remember two examples that were really inspiring. One was from ESPO, who said that the beginning, and ESPO was not among the hardest hit cities in the first wave at least, but they said immediately they have seen that with teleworking and the change of work, some, for example, civil servants from the municipality of ESPO would remain rather with a lot of leisure time, let's say, while, for example, in other areas like healthcare workers or in the food supply chains, there were much more needs. So they have done fast-track training courses to transform the civil servants into healthcare workers, for example. And this work just to alleviate the burden from the hospitals, for example. And that was very inspiring from other cities as well. And like the second example that I always like to refer is Amsterdam. Amsterdam is one of our mentor cities in the Intelligent Cities Challenge. But likewise, for example, Amsterdam noticed immediately that airport will take some time to work. But all the personnel that was working in the logistics supply chain of the airport could very well, they had the skills, and with a light reskilling, could work in the supermarkets, in the food supply chain. And that's what they have done in order to work more efficiently and provide the food that the people wanted. So this type of initiatives that, as Eva said, I confirmed, is happening grassroots at the city level, at local level, but it is enough to assess very quickly the priorities and the kind of skills that you have and repurpose them, as we repurpose actually the production and manufacturing to cover the needs that during the pandemic. Now, after the pandemic, so not only during the pandemic, but the skills issue, I would like to insist on that, is something that I believe Eva mentioned that before as well. It takes high traction among the European Union as well. We had in July adopted the new European skills agenda, and this is not only for e-skills, but it's all type of skills that our industry needs. And actually, last Tuesday, Commissioner Breton and Commissioner Smith launched the Pact for Skills. So this is a major initiative that looks to create partnerships for the reskilling and upskilling of the workforce. So not only the young people that go out of the university, of course, those as well, but all these people that are in the workforce and that either because of the automation or because of the COVID or because of these big shifts in jobs and tasks that we see because of these disruptive technologies, will see part of the jobs they are doing obsolete. So the reskilling becomes really a major issue that the governments cannot shoulder by themselves, and where industry and small and medium enterprises will have a role to play. So Pact for Skills, I would encourage you to have a look and join the Pact. I mean, it's now open for all sorts of stakeholders to join and take part of the responsibility on reskilling the workforce. In the meantime, I see we have the results of our poll. It must be on your screens. So let's see what the results are from. I repeat the question. What are the most important priorities to boost disruptive tech deployment among small and medium enterprises? And the winner is, so most people found that facilitate close collaboration between stakeholders is the key issue. So bring it practically, the creators of the solutions with the customers of the solutions together to create new markets. Those are 44.6% of our people suggested we need a better ecosystem creation. There are already European networks. Eva mentioned the European Enterprise Europe Network. There is a Digital Innovation Hubs network. There are the industrial clusters network and many others, but indeed small and medium enterprises play a key role in being part of this ecosystem to find the customers that would need their solutions. Then the second, most popular answer is the easily accessible access to finance, external financing for SMEs. I believe our speakers confirmed that as well. And then, well, there I'm surprised. Much less people find relevant to support skill building of small and medium enterprise management and workforce. So according to other experts, skills is a major issue. Now it doesn't seem to take so much traction. And then indeed, clearly lower in the preferences of people was to facilitate secure and easy data sharing and adaptation of existing regulatory frameworks to the requirements of the high-tech age. We take that on board. I believe we had a very rich discussion around these issues. We do not need to repeat. At the end, indeed, we are speaking about a policy mix that will need all these elements in order to work correctly. With this, I would like to ask a question to all of our speakers, and I would say, take 2 minutes each. I see we still have the time to respond to that. I would like to, towards the end of our panel, to turn our minds to more forward-looking, to the future. So the question is, should we anticipate further waves of innovation and accelerated changes through, for example, quantum computing? And then how can small and medium enterprises surf this wave, the new waves of innovation and technology, and not being sunk by them? Should I start with Anna or Eva? Eva.
I can always, politicians, I thought when I was younger, I didn't have many things to say, but now growing from my experience in the European Parliament, we discuss so much about these things and I have so much information that of course quantum computing has become one of our priorities, and the biotechnologies are already emerging, and we've seen that people are waiting for a vaccine that will come out of AI. It's not AI that is a vaccine, but AI could help us discover much faster the pattern that this disease follows and to see what's the best treatment and to reach to a point where we can have a solution. But to do that, we need to have more data on similar standards. We need to have supercomputers in order to process those data. And we have definitely to invest in quantum computing, because whoever does will be able to lead actually the future, because this means you're breaking any cryptography. You are immediately checking hundreds, thousands of solutions instantly to reach into conclusions. So the potential of this technology is really important, and Europe cannot be left behind. If you add also the national strategies and the European funding, you would see that actually we're heavily invested in those. And I have to make a comment about the digital skills. Maybe they're not important because whoever participates here has it, but there are like 80% of the SMEs that they don't, and they need to have access to digital skills. And this doesn't mean they need to be software developers. It means they need to understand how to use data, how to use all the tools they have online. So Dana, thank you for the amazing efforts you've been doing, because I know that besides that we're working from like home or distance, we actually work more than ever on several files. And I think it's one of the few times that I could say that the Parliament, the Commission, they are very close in the approaches that we have and the way we see the future. I would say the problems we have, it's with the Council mainly, with some countries that they don't want to change their model, their economic model, and they don't want to compromise anything. So we have to make sure that we will all be on the same page and on board, and nobody will be left behind. And finally, I would say that all these new technologies, they can be used by the SMEs in order to find solutions for problems that exist. The only thing is that they have to change a bit their mentality. They have to find new business models, a new. There are always problems. They have to be able to be flexible and to adapt to the circumstances. Mm-hmm. You mentioned before interesting examples of how they switched immediately their models into being more useful into the circumstances of this pandemic in a city. Imagine if a company doesn't change, how they can work when everything around us has already changed. So we have to adapt faster. We are the ones who have to remove the frictions and give them investment opportunities and the tools to do so. So hopefully we will not stifle innovation. No? We were just trying to support it by giving them legal certainty, clarity, and
thank you. Thank you very much, Eva. I'm conscious of time because I know we will be cut exactly at 4:30. So this makes 1 minute for Rafael and Anna to comment on looking forward to the future. Rafael or Anna? Anna, please.
Yeah, I would just say that I'm very optimistic because, innovators are driven in the worst of the situations. You have this spirit of, finding a solution. So even in my role in the EIC, I've seen all these Eastern countries with amazing amount of entrepreneurs. I didn't know about this young Europe from the East. I adore them all. People with hunger, with creativity. So, if we let them do, I'm very confident that we'll get by. So I just hope we don't just stop them. So I'm very, very optimistic of the future of Europe. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. Very encouraging message. And Rafael?
Yeah, very short one. My favorite innovator, or one of them, is a gentleman called Alan Kay, who pretty much invented the personal computer and what the iPad is. And he was asked about the future and whether it's scary or not and how to predict it. And he said, if you want to predict the future, just make it, right? And I think that's the advice I would give to SMEs. I think there's so much opportunity. Eva mentioned quantum computers. They may come or not, but at the path, we're going to see a lot of innovation, a lot of disruption, and that's true for all the innovations that are coming forward. A huge opportunity for SMEs.
Thank you. Excellent quotes. Thank you all to our speakers. just 1 minute from our side. I mean, there are many key lessons that we've heard. How can I wrap up that in 1 minute? But I would make the effort, though. What the common pattern from our three speakers was very vivid. I mean, Europe can win, and we can win on our own terms, by respecting the European values and by favoring access to data, public and industrial data, our own data, and of course, respecting our commitment to climate and the green transition. So by respecting these rules, we can do better. We can stay here in Europe, create here in Europe and do it here, but also being extrovert and conquering the world out there with our smart minds and smart solutions. And a whole agenda of European policies, the new European policies from the EU Green Deal, from the new industrial strategy, the SME strategy, the new skills agenda, the circular economy action plan, and so on and so forth. They are very supportive to this move. The new multi-annual framework program will give unprecedented amount of money to the member states, and the recovery and resilience facility will be there to support all these efforts. So thank you very much for your thoughtful interventions. The world is there for our small and medium enterprises to conquer. Thank you all. Have a nice afternoon and continuation of the SME Assembly. Bye-bye.